What's going on, everybody? I'm Jeff St. Pierre, and this is episode 157 of the Adult Education Podcast. Today, we got a repeat guest in singer and podcast host Ray Harkins. It's been a little while since we've had a repeat guest on the show, and honestly, I've been trying to find an excuse to have this guy back on. Then he started up a new band, and I thought, this is my opportunity. So today I'm speaking with Ray Harkins. You may know him through a few different ways. Ray has been part of the hardcore music scene for decades through various bands, but probably most notably as the singer for Taken. He's also pretty big in the podcasting world as well, with his music podcast, 100 Words or Less. Ray's been doing that for a long time as well. I think at least like a decade now or something. We caught up a couple of years ago to talk about music and his podcast, but today we're chatting about his new project. Kind of out of nowhere, Ray started posting about a new band that he is singing or screaming for, if you will, a band called Bloodguilt. This group is made up of former members of some other pretty big bands from the early 2000s hardcore scene, bands like Stavesacre and Project 86, and their EP was produced by Bo Burchell, best known for being in Seosin. This whole project seems kind of like a hardcore supergroup in a way, and it sounds like it too. There's a sense of urgency in this music, like it needs to be heard. It wants to be heard. So today, Ray and I get to talk about what it's like to age in the hardcore scene and also to find new life. We discuss the pretty remarkable story of how Bloodguilt came together and how important our friends' recommendations are on social media. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Ray Harkins. What's up, Ray?
Hi, Jeff. How are you?
I am good. I'm good. I've never recorded an interview like this here in the studio. It's kind of fun, like making sure everything's working.
Right. You're like, I'm using the thing that I'm not supposed to be using the thing for.
Right. Yeah. It's funny. We still, like all the artists, when they want to call in and do like radio interviews, they still want to call. And I'm like, can you guys do like anything else? Because the quality sound wise is way better on Zoom or Teams or whatever, anything but phone calls. They're like, no, just what's your number? I was like, come on.
That's so weird. I mean, I guess because, maybe they're just like driving or something, but still, that's weird.
I think a lot of them, they do like radio tour isn't the right word, but like a press tour where they just like sit in a room and someone's just connecting them for 2 hours to radio. Like, you have 6 minutes with Luke Bryan. I'm like, I only need 2. Like, I don't know why. Luke's actually a good guy. I feel bad saying that. He's actually a nice guy.
Yeah, no, but I understand when it's just like what can we get done in 6 minutes? Like, not very much, but
yeah, right.
We'll still get the 6 minutes.
Right. It's like 6 minutes is not enough to really dive deep. And then you're like, well, what are we going to talk about in that time? Like, I'm just going to be tertiary. Like, how's American Idol? Like, I don't know what.
It's very true. It's very true.
But for you, Ray, how's your new gig? I mean, the last time we talked, you were working for my company, and now you're for a totally different company. How are things going for you?
Yeah, I mean, Wondery is really good. I've been here a year and a half now. It's treating me well. I mean, it's like it working for any big organization is wild because it's just like, it was funny, actually. There's a dude who hit me up on Slack yesterday that was like, hey, I love Taken, and like he just like came out of nowhere, and I was like, oh, hey. Like, that's cool. And so like random people can just reach out. Like, there's actually a dude that works here that listens to or works at Amazon that hosts a podcast that I've listened to for years. And so like I Slack stalked him where I was like, hey, I know this is weird to say this, but I really like what you do. And he was like, thanks. And so anyways, it's just funny working for a big company when like other worlds like bleed into each other, and you're just like, oh yeah, it's a big company. It makes sense.
I would imagine in a podcast company too, like Wondery is much more podcast heavy. I would imagine there's probably a lot of people from our scene that would have some sort of familiarity with your past, because I think podcasting is a world where a lot of people from the hardcore scene or from the punk rock scene, whatever, have ventured into over the years.
I want to say there should be more, in my opinion, but it definitely feels like there are, and probably very similar to the people that travel down the music industry road that have like played in bands. Like, one would assume that like working in the music industry, they probably had some experience in like playing in a band or putting out music, but then when you actually get down to it, you're like, no, very few people are. And like, honestly, in the podcast side of things, like, there's definitely fewer people than I would expect that, like, honestly, there's maybe two people that I've come across at Wondery that like have a past or have knowledge of this. And there's only one dude that I've seen that I remember accosting him in the hallway where he was wearing a gosh, oh yeah, he's wearing a bolt thrower shirt. And
Wow.
I was like, oh, dude, you know stuff. And he was just kind of looking at me weird. I was like, oh, and I wasn't wearing any like identifying information of like, I know what that band is or what. So it was funny. But yeah, you would expect more, but we're not as common as we think we are or something. I don't know.
I do have to share this story with you. It's not relevant to anything, but I think you're the only person that I would talk to that would actually get this story. So we're talking about shirts and merch. I went to go see Botch on their reunion tour. Gosh, it feels like 2 years ago now. I don't remember when it was, but it was Botch, Converge, and Cave-In New Jersey.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, like I'm a Boston boy, like Converge and Cave-In, and this is just like my wet dream altogether. And of course, a show like that, you got to break out the old merch for it to go like represent at the show. So I have this hoodie for Drowning Man. And it was when they re-released Busy Signal at the Suicide Hotline, and it's got like a razor blade on it. And after I bought it, I was like, I really can't wear this like anywhere. Like it's really kind of inappropriate. But I was like, I can wear it to this show. The amount of people that came up to me, they were like, holy shit, Drowning Man. Like they're like, this is the old school night. Like
Absolutely. Like you can wear that and you know, it's a deep enough cut where people will say something to you as opposed to, you know, just like an older Cave-In shirt or whatever, where it's like, oh yeah, like, you know, not like you would wear the band's merch you're gonna see or something
of course
like
not.
that, because who's gonna do that? But yeah, that's cool that you were able to pull that out and have people be like, hey, yes, of course. It's affiliated with all of this.
Yes, yes, I do. I love that world. And thinking back on it, and we're going to talk a little bit about this in this conversation, but just thinking back on it, like how that was such a flag you would wave, right? Like you would wear the t-shirts of the bands out in school or out around wherever. And that was how you were like, hey, if anybody knows this, like maybe you're my people. Like, let's meet up. Let's get together. Let's go to a show. Like, I don't know. And it just reminds me of that time when I was like 18, 19 years old, walking through a college campus, like not knowing anyone, but like, I really want to go to the First Unitarian Church. I don't really want to go alone. Does anybody know this band on my shirt? Please, somebody say hi to me.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's like that's what everybody does, like with whatever it is that they wear, where you are attempting to not only signal, but then hopefully have a conversation around it, you know. But I mean, there obviously like people are wearing, and maybe this is just obviously from our skewed perspective, where it's like, I would have a hard time wearing like a shirt of like a city I've been to or whatever, where it's like Seattle or whatever. And I'm just like, I mean, that's fine. Like I'm not looking at people being like, you idiot, why are you wearing a Seattle shirt? But it's just like, you know, is that inspiring a conversation where you're just like, dude, so you've been to Seattle? And I'm just like, I don't know. In the same way that like, you know, someone that's wearing like a Misfits shirt is probably not going to have that much to say to a person that's just like going up to them and be like, oh, you like the Misfits too? It's like, oh yeah, like who doesn't like the Misfits that's ever heard like guitar music, you know?
Right. The thing that used to kill me was when Hot Topic first started to become really mainstream. I don't know what it was like for where you lived, but I knew like up by me being just north of Boston, like they started to carry Converge shirts. And there were kids that like had no idea what Converge was, but Jacob Bannon's a hell of an artist. So they were buying these shirts because the art was so good. And good for Jacob, like looking back on it, like good for Jacob to make some cash off of this, selling the shirts. But I was like, all these kids are wearing these shirts. They have no idea what this scene is, what this band is, what any of it is. And at the time, like again, being like 16, 17 years old, I could get so mad about it. Now I look back on it very differently. But like then it was such, I was like, how dare you? Like, how dare you wear this shirt?
Yeah, of course. You definitely need a, you know, an identification card to be able to say like, have you heard Jane Doe? Like, have you heard this? Like, you need to name, you know, it's the meme on the internet. It's like name 3 songs or whatever. Right. It's like ridiculous childlike gatekeeping, but because it comes from a innocent place where it's like you want to be protective over the thing that you care so much about, and you don't feel like other people will take care of it as much as you take care of it. So there is that push and pull, but obviously you don't need to be as, a scorched earth policy as we all were when we were teenagers.
Well, that kind of brings me into talking about Bloodguilt and this new project with you, because if you had told me 10 years ago that I would be sitting here in my early to mid 40s, whatever you want to call it, talking to another guy in his early to mid 40s about his new hardcore band, I would say you're out of your damn mind. But this is where we're at today. And it's so interesting because like, I don't think I ever lost love for hardcore, but there was a good decade and a half where it kind of passed me by, where it wasn't really my thing anymore. And I really fell out of it. I don't know. Like I always thought of punk and hardcore as like a young man's game, a young person's game, but it's not that anymore. And that's so interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I agree. Now, I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that now the scene has, grown up in the sense of like we are now entering, second and third generations where it's like people can bring their children and almost ostensibly like their grandchildren to shows. And I think because of that, it makes it easier to kind of, to your point, like dip in and out of it whenever people see fit. Like some people are, that's just going to remain a constant in their lives and they're always going to be doing it. And then there's others that have been impacted by it in a real way, but then, get pulled into a different direction where they're not going to be, staying on top of the newest releases and like, oh, what's Triple B or Days Records? But it's like, that is far less important to me. And I think many people who are, over a certain age, but it's like at one point that was like the life's blood of things. But to your point, it's that exciting thing that anybody at any point can jump into it. And even though it is still always going to be attached to youth culture and people who are obviously way younger than us, there doesn't need to be this preciousness of like, oh, like I can't participate because, like that's a young person's game or whatever. It's like, well, yeah, it is, but yes, and, like
Right.
what's preventing us from either caring about it or obviously being creative towards it.
Well, and it's so interesting too in the streaming era, while streaming may not be a perfect situation for an artist, it has opened the door for a lot of people to say, hey, there's still interest in my band. There's still interest in our music. We should go back out and play some shows. Like every time a festival pops up, I mean, the Fest in Gainesville just announced, I saw Coalesce was on. I was like, oh my God, like when was the last time I saw Coalesce doing a show? I know you had one of the guys on your podcast not too long ago, but it's just like, wow, I can't even imagine like this band that I listened to in high school and college that has been essentially defunct for almost 20 years now is like, hey, we're doing shows again. Let's go party. But that's kind of what's cool about this world that we're in now, that there is a way for people to hear your music without having to go to the store and search through a bin. They can just pick up their phone and go, wow, my older brother or my dad even now like really liked this band. Let's check them out. There is something kind of cool about that.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And especially where it's like so many bands have had, second and third lives where people, I mean, using a very relevant topic of conversation, like that band Super Heaven, where it's like they just released a new record today. That is a band that it's like I remember booking them on Sound and Fury back in 2010, 2011. I can't remember the years that I did it, but when they were called Daylight. And it was one of those things where like good band, but the fact that they got caught in the social media algorithm and are as popular as they ever have been, where it's just like that could not have existed, whatever, 5 to 7 years ago. But then all of a sudden it starts to exist in the, 2022, 2023. And it's so cool to see those bands get their flowers and get recognition, and they've already put in a lot of hard work. And then on the flip side, there's bands that like no one should care about, and I don't mean that in a bad way, just in like, why do you still have a memory for this? Like this band played in front of maybe collectively 400 people during their like 3 years of existence. And I joke around with a friend of mine, Josh Jakubowski. Basically, he played in like Hot Cross,
Sure.
Neil Perry, like all these legendary screamo bands. And him and I had dinner not too long ago. And it was one of those things where I was like, you could play a fest of just your bands and you would probably have like 500 people there. And he's just like, he finds it so funny where I'm like, he's like, I guess you're probably right. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Like, it's just such a weird world where these niche bands that have been vaulted to this level of importance, rightfully so, because they're writing good music. But the fact they can live on and have a 14-year-old kid check it out and be like, "Oh, this is great."
That is something that's very fascinating, because even going to see Botch on their reunion tour, I mean, I loved those guys, but they were playing rooms that they never would have played 20 years ago, and just being in that. I remember the last time I had seen them was probably in like 2000 or 2001, and they played this bar in New Jersey where there were like 30 of us. And now here we are in 2023 or 2024, whichever year it was, in a place in New Jersey with 2,500 people packed in, like all the way to the wall. And I was like, what happened? Like, you guys didn't do anything for 20 years. You're like this massive success all of a sudden. Now I know there was
Totally.
a one and done tour, but still, you're right. I mean, it's interesting to see how these bands have grown while doing nothing, essentially.
And it's cool. I mean, using a band like Botch, where it's I love when bands can still not only remain vital, because I mean, like, I'm sure you felt it, where it's like watching them, you're just like, oh, they took this assignment seriously.
Yes.
They sounded great. Like,
Yes.
everything was great. Then they also, the fact that they released that song like out of nowhere, where they're just like, oh yeah, hey guys, remember we're Botch. And it was just like, what? This 2-minute song, it's incredible. But yeah, it is so interesting to see how those bands of all shapes and sizes are like, people are just getting into like the music of it, where it's like we were coming at it from the perspective of, yes, we like the music, but then also the proverbial scene is what we got drawn into. And there are people who don't have to be as like intrinsically involved with that, but still like the music, go to the shows or whatever. It is interesting to see how that style, even though it's still so harsh and so unfriendly, that it could be somewhat mainstream now, when in ways that it just doesn't compute in our brains, because we've been able to watch this like 30-year arc, and all of a sudden it's just like, I guess this is where we're sitting now. Like, bands are playing late night shows, and like, that's cool. It's
Oh
totally
my God.
fine.
I know that too, like seeing Scowl and Knocked Loose on like late night shows. I'm like, what is, I love it. I love it, but it's just, what is happening? Like, it's such a strange world. But I do want to tie this into you and your career, because you go back many years with your band Taken, and not that Taken was ever done, but you guys have had different seasons of your career where you were on and off and taking some time, and then all of a sudden you pop up with Bloodguilt here in a whole new project. And I wonder, what was it like for you to say, hey, I've been doing one thing really for so long, and even though that's not really working on a full-time basis or even on a really busy basis, I really want to get into something else right now, something new and something fresh. Like, what was that for you?
So, I mean, it was really weird, to be honest, because so the people that I play with in Bloodguilt, like, they're a few years older than me, and they're all musicians that I have like looked up to, because I mean, the dudes that I play with, like, they played in Stavesaker, Project 86, like a lot of these, very monumentally important bands, especially within the context of like the Christian, hardcore independent music scene or whatever. So I have met most of these guys, and I've like worked with some of them professionally, but they weren't like friends. They weren't bros. It was just like, oh wow, like, there's Dirk from Stavesaker or whatever. When I got pulled into this, it was very much just like friends of friends introducing us and being like, hey, these guys have hardcore songs written. They're looking for a singer. You live relatively close to them. You guys not friends? And I was like, oh, I know them. We've just never like hung out. And then once me and Alex, our drummer, we connected on the phone, and we talked for like, I don't know, hour and a half, 2 hours, just about, our experiences within music, and like the fact that we were probably in, so many of the same rooms together, but just had never met. And they sent me the songs, and like, it was so fun, because I had never played in like a straight up hardcore band before. Like, Taken, even though there's elements of it, it was still progressive, or, melodic in ways that most other bands, when you are starting playing hardcore, is very straightforward. And so the 5 songs they sent me, I was like, oh, this is like the Judge song. This is the Strife song. This is the Unbroken song. And I'm like, this is awesome, because I've never been able to sing as straightforward as I ever had in the past. And so it felt, like I said, weird, but exciting, because it was flexing kind of a different muscle that I never had the ability to flex before. And so it was ultimately exciting, but also weird, because it wasn't grown in the same way that most other bands are grown, where it's just like, oh yeah, friends, and you kind of just play in the room together. It was like, here's these songs. You want to yell on them, Ray? And I was like, sure, let's try this out.
I'd love to scream on these. This sounds great.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, hey, dude. And that's the thing where it's like, truly, if they sent the songs to me and I listened to them and it was just like, like I just wouldn't have done it. I'm like, I don't need to do this. Like, there's no value add into my life in any capacity. If for one, I didn't get along with the guys or like respected where they were coming from, if it was just like, random people. And then on top of it, the songs were great. And I was like, oh yeah, we can probably do something with these. And like, I'm not gonna, completely ruin it. So like, let's try.
I love that they just sent you songs. I think that's really, I think that makes the story really cool too, because it is sort of like, I don't really know. It's almost like a sports story, like a legendary sports story of like, we just need one more guy on this team and we're going to make it happen. Somebody call, and it's just so funny to hear how that kind of came together in such a way where you weren't even expecting that call and just said, F it, let's do this.
No, you're right. And it was funny because they've all either played in bands together or have just been in the circle of friends together. And these songs had been kicking around for the better part of like 2 some odd years.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know truthfully how many people had either like sent demos or like, that they've were actively, pursuing, trying to find a vocalist, but they had talked to people and other people that they had tangential connections to. So I know there was that, but the fact that it just, once they sent me the songs, it was a matter of, I think in less than 4 or 5 months, like everything was like done and settled. And then that was a matter of like, you guys want to play some shows? Like we can get this record out. Like, let's do all these things. And once that ball started to roll, everybody else was just like incredibly excited in the band and being like, oh yeah, like we can like put this out. This isn't just like some, random digital release or whatever. We can like make it as official as we want to and play stuff around it as opposed to just this, digital only band.
I'm jumping ahead a little bit and, my thoughts and my questions, but since you just mentioned that, what is the expectation for this band? Because you guys are all, you said they're a couple years older than you. So you guys are all men in your 40s, seemingly with families and jobs and all of that. So, to do a hardcore project where you pack it up and you start touring the country, probably not likely for at least a long-term thing. What is the expectation for what this band can do?
Yeah, no, and truthfully, like whatever we want, because the 2 shows that we played, it truly felt like I was 16 years old again, because it was like I was talking to my friend Eric, who played guitar or who plays guitar in Barbarians of California. And he's a producer for, Aaron, who plays in AWOL Nation, who's the vocalist of the band. So anyways, it was just like, know all those dudes. Eric and I were just texting each other, and Eric was like, hey, we're like, you have a new band, right? I was like, yeah. It's like, we're playing, a show in LA on, the 8th. Do you want to play? Like, and this was like in December or something. And so I was like, let me ask the guys, I guess. So it really did feel like I was 16 reaching out to, hey guys, do you want to play our first show? Everyone was like, and honestly, within a half an hour, everyone was in, because the luxury that we obviously have as grown-ass adults is being like clearly we are not doing this to make money. Like,
sure.
If we even come remotely close to, breaking even, everybody's fine. And even if we lose money, everybody's fine, because this is all part of just the overall experience. And so in a way, it frees us up to be able to kind of be deliberate about whatever it is we want to do, usually anchoring it around some show or something that we're excited about. So truthfully, like, we're open to anything, as long as it's fun and as long as it's with friends. Like, are we going to do, like you said, that like, hey, we're gonna, do a 2-week run on the East Coast just for like no real reason? It's like, well, no. But if it's like a friend's band of ours is like, hey, let's like do something, like, sure, that's great. How many people are going to be there tonight? I don't know, 30. Okay. Sure, that's fine. Like, that feels like every other show I've ever played. So yeah, we're being deliberate about what we're doing, but it's attached to the freedom of being able to make those choices, where it's just like, oh yeah, we don't have to make any decision from a financial perspective where it's just like, oh my gosh, like if we lose money, what's this mean to us? It's like, it's fine. We're all adults. We're good.
Hearing you talk about this, it's interesting because, at the beginning of this conversation, we talked about how hardcore and punk was kind of once always viewed to be a young person's game. But now that we're talking, it's like a young person's game, but it's also an old person's game. But it's not really like a mid-level game because as you're talking, you're like, we are financially stable adults. We're okay. We can make a decision to go do something on our own that we want to do and have fun, which is the same attitude you would probably have when you're like 16 starting a band. But when you're like 27, 28 and you got like a rent payment or something and you're like, I don't know, guys, I'm really going to have to take this shift. I can't make the show, So it's interesting. Like it does almost feel like a young and an old, but not really a middle.
No, it's a great point because, and I think truthfully, if you're comparing those two things, even though you wouldn't consider yourself, stable at whatever 16 to 22, you are devoid of responsibility,
Right.
besides taking care of yourself. But then when you are older, the responsibilities stack up, but then there's a security in the comfort of whatever it is, whether it's, oh yeah, I've got the rent dialed in, I own a house, I own a condo or whatever. And then like, yeah, I've got a job that I know I'm not going to like get fired from tomorrow. So like, we're good. We're good. So yeah, it definitely frees people up. And that's why I think you see all of the, not only the, reunion shows and anniversary tours and everything that we're awash in is because people are able to react from that space of being like, oh yeah, I can take 2 weeks off of work or whatever and, play in front of 300 people a night for doing this anniversary tour of whatever record. And it's like, yeah, people are just able to do that in ways that it wasn't even possible, even whatever, 6 or 7 years ago, like pre-pandemic, like people were doing that, but still at a far less clip than what you see now, where it's just like everybody is totally able to do that.
Yeah, like remote work for sure. My buddy Josh is the guitarist for the band Something Corporate. And last summer they did a reunion tour. And I remember there was actually an article in a magazine about it because he's a lawyer and he would be up like all day long before the shows doing work, like making calls, doing all these different things. And he's like, this is the deal that I made. Like they let me go on this tour and travel to the East Coast to play these shows, but I've got to be available to do lawyering or whatever it is you want to call it. And I'd like, but that's stuff that you can do and you can navigate around that now versus even what you said, like even 6-7 years ago, pre-pandemic, people weren't as excited about telework. They weren't as into it. But now it's like, yeah, man, you can get all of your work done from a computer. So go.
So absolutely. I mean, I remember how that became unlocked in my brain where it was like I was working at Century Media and they allowed me to tour. Like they didn't care. They were just like, as long as you keep up with your work, we don't care. But this was like very much a pre-smartphone world as far as iPhones was concerned. But I remember like my Sprint Trio where it had the stylus, it had the keyboard and everything. But I remember getting that and being able to, I went out on the road managing Alexis on Fire because they asked me if I was able to do that. And I just remember sitting in the front seat of the Alexis on Fire tour van doing emails during the afternoon as we were driving. And I was just like, dude, this is such a game changer. Where it's like, because I used to be able to like maybe do that when we got to a venue and maybe they had Wi-Fi and maybe I would be able to answer some emails, but most likely it was not until like the evening when we got to wherever we were staying. And so yeah, that just opens up the world for so many people to be creatively involved, but then still be obviously responsible with whatever's attaching them to, the financial implications of living. But yeah, it's great because then we, as the consumers of the music, can exist in a world where all of this stuff is available, where it's like, oh, I can see this band, like this is great. And it wasn't an option, 10 years ago.
I kind of love that the conversation shifted this way, even though it's not at all how I planned this conversation to go. I love that we took this path into what it's like to be an adult and the responsibilities you have and still wanting to play music. But let's dive back into Bloodguilt, because something that you did say I thought was interesting, and I want to tie it into another interview that you did before, because you said when you heard their demos, you heard their songs they've been working on, you were like, here's the Judge song, here's the whatever song. You could hear the influence in them. And I was reading another interview that you did where you said you didn't want to be a cliche on top of a cliche on top of a cliche when doing this. So how'd you put your own stamp? How did you guys put your own stamp on these songs that you feel are clearly, influenced by other acts that you've loved over the years?
Truthfully, it was just in the for me as a lyricist, it was really just that approach of being like, okay, even though sonically we wear our influences on our sleeves, and that's the whole point of why this project exists,
Yeah.
I was like, I want to be singing through this band as a grown-ass adult with a child, like all of these things. I want to be singing about it from my singular experience. I mean, singular, yet also obviously universal,
Mhm.
because everybody goes through all of the things that we all go through in our lives. So, truthfully, that's where I was supremely focused on, where it's like, okay, I want to keep the lyrics as, I guess, as straightforward as possible, and kind of cut to the bone, because truthfully, I am not a person that is very good at being concise. I mean, obviously, we're in the podcasting space for a
Right.
reason.
Concise. What?
Yeah, what? No, media training? Come on. I digress, but I worked for PETA, the animal rights organization, for a few years, and I was going through media training, and I went through a few rounds, and they were just like, you know what, Ray, you're not going to be the TV guy. And I'm like, thank you. Because getting my point across in 30 seconds is impossible for me. Anyways, going back onto the freeway. So yeah, I just really focused on being concise, making sure I was singing about the things that you are a common experience for all of us of a certain age, but then also being like, I'm not gonna like, be so highfalutin as saying like, all right, well, I'm gonna bring, this level of philosophy to hardcore that's never been done before. I'm like, no, no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna be straightforward. I'm gonna be to the point, but I am going to be singing about the fact that, I'm thinking about my mortality as I start to enter, midlife, and like all of these things that, as a, early 20s, late teens person, they sing about that all the time, but like they're also staring down the barrel of like another 70 years
Yeah.
on the planet. Whereas it's like, oh, damn, time's the ticket now. Like, so I really tried to kind of focus that.
Did they come to you with any themes or lyrics, or were they just like, Ray, we need you to scream. We want you to write everything, like the lyrics, the words, that is all on you, dude.
That, yeah, they trusted me, and it was one of those things where I don't think I even shared what I was going to be screaming or singing over that. It was basically like I got all the ideas down. I told them in general kind of like what the vibe was, as far as like the theme I was trying to get across, and then yeah, I shared the lyrics afterwards, and everybody was like, "Cool, man! Like this is great." I was like, "Thank you."
That's a gutsy call, because you could roll in there, and I know you wouldn't because it's not who you are, but like you could roll in there with like a whole list of things where they'd be like, I don't know if we picked the right guy. Like this might not be our stuff.
Oh, totally. And I definitely was mindful of the fact that it's like I wanted to, respect what it was that I was doing in regards to, not just like going to completely ruin whatever their vision was, but they truly were just like, hey, like we vibe with you, like everything. And plus, they could, to your point, they could look back at my previous,
Yeah.
lyrics from Taken or Makoto. Like they could understand where I was coming from. And I didn't make any point to be like, hey guys, I'm reinventing the wheel. I'm not going to write about anything that I've ever written about before. So there was a lot of trust that was already hard baked in. But yeah, that definitely would. And truthfully, too, because of the Christian background of many of the members,
Mhm.
as far as everybody that they, all the previous bands that they played in, that wasn't something that they were like. I think if I came forward and was just like, hey, so I'm going to talk about my faith a lot, they probably would have been like, we've kind of already been there and done that. And I wasn't about to do that myself, because I was just like, that's not the point of what it was that we were trying to accomplish here. So yeah, a lot of trust already existed, but it was definitely, I was cognizant of what I didn't want to do, if that makes sense.
Well, the EP, and I only have you for a couple more minutes here, but the EP is self-titled Bloodguilt EP. It's 5 songs. I can't wait till I get my package in the mail. I think it said it's coming to me on Monday with my hoodie and my vinyl, and I'm very excited about this because this, I don't know if people listening can pick up on it just from the way we're talking, but it makes me happy. Like I'm happy to see folks like you and the other guys. Like I've listened to the other bands, Project 86, Dave Saker, all that, even Bo Burchell mixing it. Like I've listened to the bands and the properties that these people have been involved in over the years. And I love that even though you've been doing music for 30 years or whatever in your life, that you're still doing it and you've found a project that you feel a whole new excitement about. Listening to your screaming on the record, listening to the playing, I mean, it sounds urgent like you were 17 years old again. Like I couldn't believe when I popped it on how amped up it got me. I knew you wouldn't mail it in, right? Like I'm not accusing, I knew when you guys were going to be a part of a project, it was going to be a solid project, but I couldn't believe how the sense of urgency I felt when I did first hear it. And I love that for you guys.
Well, I genuinely appreciate that because that's definitely the point that we were trying to get across. And it wasn't, even though a lot of this came from a very, sort of happenstance, like, or organic route, we definitely didn't want to just be a thing. It's like we wanted to have a little more of an impact, whether that was, aligning ourselves with New Age Records and like literally achieving a dream of mine since I was like 16 years old, or having, the design work of the Clark brothers from Invisible Creature, who are, some legendary artists within the scene. And like that, you look at a hardcore record that got designed in the late 90s and early 2000s and like their fingerprints are all over it. And so like the fact we could kind of pull all these relationships and experiences that we had together just made it feel much more serious for us. So like, to your point, like we weren't going to, just kind of like, if at any point it was feeling not as successful in execution as it was in our brains, like we literally wouldn't be here talking about this.
Well, like, what's the point, right? Like we've all had our lives, we've all done our thing. If we don't like doing this, why the fuck are we doing it?
Totally. It just, it would just kind of die in the vine and like that. And that's fine because so many other things like do that, but you have to put the, forth the effort and the try. And every step of the way, it just felt like, oh yeah, this is the next logical thing that needs to happen. And it felt very like the best compliment besides the ones that you were sharing with me there was like playing it for my wife. And she was just like, oh yeah, like you sound like an adult now. I was like, this is great. It's great. It's great. It's like just coming into the fact that it's like, oh yes, my voice is more mature, like all the other things that happen just through age. And so it definitely felt validating from that side of the house.
The Bloodguilt EP is out now. It's self-titled. Ray, also the host of the 100 Words or Less podcast. You also have other bands in your history, including Taken. Ray, thank you so much for your time, man. I appreciate this. And also, I love that we connected a few years ago because your recommendations through your Instagram stories are always spot on. Every time I'm like, oh, a new song or a new movie or a new show, I'm like, this is it. I'm going to make sure I screen grab this because I know that it's going to be good. Ray has not led me astray yet.
Well, I'm glad because that's literally the best way that we can all learn from each other. So it's like, whenever I see you posting stuff as well, it's like, you have your trusted cohort of people where it's like, oh yeah, I trust their taste. Like they're on the right track. So yeah, it's always, I always am inspired by other people in the way that, I hope that the stuff that I share is also inspiring because it's just like, oh yeah, this is getting me amped up. This probably will excite someone else as well. So yeah, I'm glad we're all learning from each other, Jeff.
We are, Ray. Hey, good to talk to you, man. Congratulations on everything.
Likewise.
And hopefully our paths will cross again sometime soon.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, dude. I appreciate you.
Big thank you to Ray Harkins for his time. I know hardcore music isn't necessarily for everyone, but if you're interested, the Bloodguilt EP is out now wherever you stream or purchase your music. And Ray's podcast, 100 Words or Less, is updating weekly. It's such a fun ride each week, so be sure to give it a shot. Thank you for checking out this episode of the Adult Education Podcast. Until next week, be well.